What if God really is real? I am just studying this. I want to know how to answer people because a lot of times people are like, well, is God real? And I'm like, yeah. And I don't actually have like a valid answer besides my own personal experience with him. So I wanted to study like, what is it? How do I actually answer someone who has these questions on a more logical and maybe even theological level? So I have probably 6 videos that I'm going to be doing of this. Part 1, this is just my process, my study, going over notes and different Bible verses that speak to each of these different answers. But yeah, does God exist? Part 1. What if God really is real? I think this question is something that's like harder to answer if you are more logical and you need science and you're like, I need proof. On an emotional and spiritual level, if you've encountered the love of God or you've felt him before, it's like easier to like explain of I've felt God. My life has been completely changed. But sometimes people don't feel God, and that's okay. It's not meant to be a religion of feelings. It's by faith, trusting God. So but today I want to talk about 4 different things, 4 different reasons why I believe God is real. And these are just my notes, what I've studied, what I'm learning right now as I'm digesting it. But a couple of them are like big random words and I'm like, I don't know what that even means, but we'll dive in. The first one is cosmological argument, which is just a fancy way of saying cause and design. So that's basically, is God really real? Okay, well, let's look at creation. Creation points to a creator. Design points to a designer. You're not going to find like a camera or an iPhone or something on the beach and be like, oh, this just randomly appeared here. But you're going to realize that someone created it. So is God real? Well, if you take into consideration all of nature, I'm looking outside my window right here. There's trees, there's birds. All of that is it's too complex to be random. Like, how does a leaf get like energy and grow from the sun? That's random. DNA stores information. DNA, like just being, I don't know, all like gravity, all of that stuff, that's all too complex to be by accident. So it's almost like you have to ask who or what created it and why. I think it says one of the things is that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Well, the universe began to exist, so therefore it has a cause. But the question is who or what caused it. And I think that really points to God. That points to a creator. That points to a designer. And in the beginning of the Bible, Genesis 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is God's word. If you don't believe the Bible, that's your prerogative. I don't even know if that's the right way to use that. But all of it creation points to a creator. Romans 1:20, it says God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been seen clearly, being understood from what has been made. So we see creation, we see what he designed, and that proves that there was a creator. So creation points to a cause, creation points to a creator, it points to a designer. So on that first level, you can't look at all of this and look at nature and be like, it's random, it was an accident. There's no way, maybe some of you came from a monkey. There's no way, though, that we just evolved. There was intention, there was a creator behind it. Then the next one is teleological argument, design and order. Oh, I skipped ahead. Design points to a designer. This is, these two kind of, I feel like, make sense, right? So cosmological argument is there's a cause and an origin. So creation points to a cause. There was a purpose for creation outside of time, outside of space and matter. We don't know, but there was a purpose for it. And then design points to a designer. So I think a big argument is that, science can explain everything. But the truth is science can explain how things work, but not how they exist, how they came to be. Science explains how a tree works with photosynthesis, but it doesn't explain how that happened. They can't explain how DNA stores information. It can't explain how gravity keeps us on the earth and how we're exactly the right distance from the sun. And if we were any closer, we would burn up. It can't explain why that is. They can explain, or like it can't reason with that. So the design in itself, what I was saying about finding an iPhone, if you find it on the beach randomly, that design, there was intention in that. So design points to a creator, creation points to a cause, everything, those two in themselves, design and cause, it's like there's no way that you could logically think that things just happen randomly and by chance. And then we move on to the moral argument, right and wrong. But so where does moral law come from? I think there are things that we all agree are right and that are wrong. I heard a story of a guy arguing with somebody about morality and how this person was saying that morality is subjective and that they couldn't condemn the Holocaust. They were like, oh yeah, I don't know if I could say that what they did was evil because morality is subjective. And I'm like, I wasn't in the conversation, but in my mind, I would have been like, are you out of your mind? To say morality is subjective is so like lazy and selfish, because essentially what you're trying to do is put yourself above everybody else and be like, well, what I say is good, and if you don't view that, then I'm sorry, that sucks for you, but this is what I believe is good. This is what's true to me. It doesn't work that way. But we all have things that we agree are right and wrong. So racism and abuse and things like that, we're like, oh, that's morally wrong. Maybe some people don't agree fully, but internally, majority of us, we have this sense of what's right and wrong. So that points to a moral lawgiver or someone, a moral law, a moral code that was written on our hearts. And the Bible talks about it in Romans 2. It says, indeed, when the Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. So they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them. So we have kind of convictions and beliefs, and we're like, oh, most of us, we believe stealing is wrong. We believe murder is wrong. We believe that lying is wrong. How do you believe that? How do you think that unless there was a moral law given by a moral lawgiver? Yeah, like if God doesn't exist, what makes something evil? Not just like unpopular. You know, questions to ask yourself if you're still wondering. And then the last thing here is the existential argument. All of these are just kind of bigger terms that I feel like I was just learning. So there's the cosmological, which argues cause and origin, which is creation points to a cause. And then there's teleological, which is design and order, which is design points to a designer. And then the moral argument, right and wrong, morality points to a moral lawgiver. But then the last one here is desire and longing. A quote from C.S. Lewis, he says, "If I find desires in myself which nothing in the world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world." C.S. Lewis said that. I think I already said that. But we have longings that don't get fulfilled on earth. We long for love, and we long for purpose, and we have a desire for justice, and we don't see that all the time. We live in a world full of injustice. We live in a world that's full of hate. And even if you'd feel love to a degree here on earth, like I'm married and I'm in a happy relationship and I love my wife, but my wife by herself can't satisfy me. I need God. There's I have a longing in my heart, a desire in my heart that can't be fulfilled outside of God. Nothing on this earth can satisfy that. No amount of money, no amount of followers, no amount of anything can satisfy that. So that points that what C.S. Lewis is saying is like, if nothing here can satisfy me, that means that there's something greater out there that does satisfy. Which, again, all things point back to God. If you look at all these four things, if I think about them and I'm like actually just honest with myself, oh yeah, this makes sense. There is a moral law. I do feel some things are right and some things are wrong. I wonder where I got that from. If you do look at creation and you're like, yeah, dang, where does the wind come from? Where does it go? I don't know. How does a tree grow so big? How does it work that when a tree drops a leaf or when wheat dies, it plants more seeds and then more things grow? Why does it work that way? We don't understand creation. Your human body, your flesh, the way that it just heals itself. Oh my gosh, there's so many things that all point to God. They all point to a creator. They all point to a designer. They point to someone that gives it purpose. And apart from that, I don't know. It kind of fries my brain. I needed an answer. I needed something to answer people. Like, okay, well, is God real? Okay, well, yeah, let's look at creation. Do you believe that this was random? Do you think that this just happened? Okay. Do you think that you are an accident yourself, like by design? Maybe your parents didn't plan for you, but God planned for you. He designed you. Psalms 139, he says he knitted you together. He knitted me together in my mother's womb. David's writing that. That's what he did for you. Right and wrong. We believe things are right and wrong. But then we also have desires that don't get fulfilled on this side of eternity. That's because we were meant for more. We were meant for a relationship with God. We were meant for a relationship with our Creator. So is God really real? Yes. I don't know. I still think that people are like, okay, well, people that, I don't know, there's people like, oh, people that believe in God, it's just wishful thinking. And it's like, okay, I think atheism is lazy. I think believing that there's not a God is actually more wishful thinking than anything else, because you don't want to be held to a higher standard. You want to be the standard. I think that's lazy and annoying, frankly. But also atheism requires more faith. To believe that all of creation just happened by accident is crazy to me. Like, you are ignoring blatant facts in front of your face and being like, oh, it's just an accident. Like, no way, bro. You are ignorant. But anyways, that's part one. We got more to come. I just wanted to break it up into smaller videos. So, cosmological, cause and origin, design and order, right and wrong, desire and longing. Those things point to there being a creator. And his name is God, and he loves you. His name is Jesus, and he loves you.